All right, we're back. We're back where it all began.
We are.
This is where we met.
Fuxing Park,
This
Shanghai.
This is where we first met.
Looking coffee.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, we don't have any coffee anymore. Now we have tea, which I'm going to pour you as you introduce yourself, because I don't think they might not know who you are.
Well, hello. I'm Jack. I'm from Newcastle in England, and I like to travel in China frequently.
What do you do when you travel in China? Do you just travel, or do you capture moments in some special way?
Well, thus far, our entire travel identity has been based off taking basically the most enduring trains that you can and meeting your everyday people who are using these long distance meeting your everyday people who are using these long distance trains as their daily commutes and just seeing what's everyday life like on
just hanging with the people.
Yeah, there's like some of these trains are like 16 hours from God knows where to the Russia border, or the 36 hours from Sichuan to Xinjiang, and
sure.
It's like the people, like I'm doing that because I like it to be a challenge and make YouTube videos showing like an exciting adventure, but everybody around us is like, that's actually their weekly commute back home, or when they go to see their grandma and grandpa, that's a 36-hour hard seat through the desert.
Right.
And to meet these people whose lives are entirely different to mine is very exciting. So that's what we've basically been doing. Other than that, getting drunk a lot.
Yeah,
and sometimes both at the same time.
So the official name of your Western social media channels, for the sake of them,
is Jack Aynsley Travel.
Now let's shift to what is the Chinese name, and how does that blend into your absolute love of getting hammered with the ordinary people of this beautiful country?
So our Chinese name, which was given to us by Chinese people, so it wasn't self-proclaimed, we were actually kindly given it by our Chinese audience, which we accidentally stumbled across, which I'll get into later. But they decided to call us the Jiuxian Fufu, which means wine fairy couple.
Wine fairy couple
who can drink a lot or whatever. Yeah, because my wife and I, Paige, when we first ever came to China, we went to Beijing, and my best friend is from Beijing, and he said, if you're going to see the real Beijing, you've got to go to the hutongs. And he said, but if you're going to go to the hutongs, you've got to go to the real hutong, which is in the south, one of the last remaining real proper working class hutongs where they haven't been converted into hipster cafes and bars and stuff like that. And we went there on our first day in China, wandering around, barely speaking a word of Chinese, and bumped into two old gentlemen. And I knew about Baijiu, which is Chinese liquor. It's sort of very strong, 42% and above.
And above.
Yeah, sometimes 60%.
I've seen
sometimes
80.
more.
I've seen, yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Ridiculous. I knew about Baijiu before we went to China, and I thought, on the off chance of having the most bizarre afternoon I could think of, let's go to the nearest shop that sells alcohol. Bought a bottle of cheap Baijiu. It was £2 a bottle, and brought it back to them. I was like, let's drink. And after a slight reluctancy from them, they enjoyed it with us, and we drank together, and they brought us snacks from their home, and we sat for like 2.5 hours drinking 45% Chinese liquor, getting hammered at 2 p.m. on a weekday in the back streets of Beijing. And that was our first ever day in China. It's a perfect metaphor for like what our journeys in China would set us up for. And the long story short of that is our YouTube video got sort of pirated and put on Bilibili, which is a Chinese version of YouTube. And
recycled. Pirated is a term you would use.
Yeah.
I don't think the people here would say pirated it. Just recycled and shared with a greater audience.
It was recycled and had Chinese captions burnt onto the top of it, and then given to a greater audience here in China. And that video went very, very viral, and everybody in China enjoyed it, and they decided this couple must be the Jiuxian Fufu, the alcoholics, the wine fairies, the people who can drink forever. And that's how that started. And since then we've built a little bit of a brand in China based on traveling with Baijiu, the Chinese liquor, and going and meeting your sort of the same types of people as who we met in the hutong, which is your everyday working man, normally of a older age, maybe they're not working and stuff like that in the day, they're retired now, drinking with them, going on mad journeys. And that all started from accidentally stumbling across two gentlemen in the hutong our first day in China. So that's us. That's our origin story as far as China is concerned.
Sure. And now you're done with a 3-month trip, almost 3 months.
Yeah.
This time in the north.
Yeah, mostly.
But that first trip, you were not only infamous for your ability to drink with old people in hutongs, there was also something else that you guys went a little mad for. And you were recognized by the domestic leader in this category, the category of riding extremely long train rides for the sake of doing it.
Just to say that we could do it, yeah. It's something that it went down a little bit weirdly in China. I think a lot of Chinese people didn't quite understand it.
It was a controversial video.
Yeah. So we decided for our first ever Chinese train journey that we would go to Chongqing, which a lot of people will know about no matter where you're from. It's the cyberpunk city, the unofficial or the biggest city in the world, which people don't know about or something like that, you know. But it's a crazy city which lots of YouTube videos have been made on. So we went there, and then afterwards we decided we would go to Urumqi, which is in Xinjiang, in the very northwest of China, bordering Kazakhstan and maybe Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan, I don't know, some other places
one of them
in the Silk Road. And the trip there is 36 hours on a train. Now you can choose a whole different heap of classes in China. You can do a soft sleeper, which is like a lovely cabin. There's 4 beds, a nice thick mattress, a duvet and a pillow. It's a lovely experience, and you get hot meals served and the rest of it. You can then choose hard sleeper, which is 3 beds in one sort of cabin room. They're much thinner mattresses, and if you're on the top floor, you literally have to sleep with God. Like, you're so high up in the train cabin that if you need to climb up there, it's somewhat uncomfortable, but still you get to lie down, there's, chill out, it's nice. Then you've got, so that's hard sleeper, then you've got hard seat. A hard seat is literally just a seat that you would get on your normal trains in the UK or wherever, in America, Amtrak, wherever. And then one down from hard seat is standing. So that's right, in China you can choose any level of comfort you like. You've got the freedom to choose whether you want to stand for a day and a half or you want to sleep in a luxury quilt and bed and everything. We decided, well, we'll stand for 36 hours from Chongqing to Urumqi. Now that went down weirdly because most people can't understand why we would do that. It's like, why didn't you just pay the money for the high speed? Well, I don't even know if there is a high speed train. I guess there is a high speed train that also runs that way, and then also
more comfortable and or efficient route. Why didn't you
there was
just
many
do that?
other options.
Yeah.
In fairness to us that time, although we did want to do that regardless, it was like the April holiday. It was like a crazy national holiday, and all the trains were booked, all the different classes were booked, and there was actually only standing left, because we booked it like the day before, which was novice of us in our first, it was within 10 days of arriving in China for the first time. We thought we'd take on the infamous green train, which is what they call them.
Well, also, I guess backstory is you guys really got well known on the internet in general because of the Pakistan trip.
Exactly. So that's what I was going to say. So in China it went down weirdly, but for us it wasn't a weird thing to do because we had built our entire brand, our entire audience on crazy long distance trains. Just before we arrived in China, we had became the first ever foreigners to complete the whole Pakistan railroad network. It's 2,500 kilometers in the lowest class train in Pakistan, which was insane. That was surrounded by MP5 machine guns, getting kicked out by armed police, removed, put in private cabins with armed guards at our doors. It was mental. We took the train from Karachi right on the Arabian coast, not far from Dubai and things like that. You can imagine what it would look like down on the coast there, and travelled all the way to the Afghanistan border on the trains. So that was that's what we know for. That's what we know, and that's what we're used to. And the same in India. We've done, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 hours of trains in India, and the lowest class. So to come to China, it was like, yeah, let's do the lowest class train in China. Let's see what it's like. And it was an entirely different experience. It was one that was so crazy, as far as the amount of people in a carriage. That was the main difference. But yeah, so that's we became known for drinking alcohol in the back streets and riding ridiculous train journeys, and had a lot of fun with it, and met a lot of great people, and made a lot of like really nice memories.
Yeah, let's talk about the people.
Yeah,
let's talk about the Chinese people.
Just
you particularly, you always use the term Laobaixing, which is like the common people.
Yeah.
Right. And so, as do I. You really enjoy the interactions with these people, and I think these Chinese people, compared to this level status of people in other countries, are unique, are different.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of special characteristics about these people.
Yeah.
So if you could speak to what are some of your impressions of hanging with the Laobaixing of China in situations in which very few foreigners ever will.
The difference between the Laobaixing of China and the Laobaixing of like other countries that we visited is that even though it might not be purely like a literal education, it's like your everyday like working class people in China, like, or even if they're like don't even work a lot or whatever, they like can just talk about anything. They have such a ridiculously wide knowledge of anything. It's like in our like hutong situation in Beijing with the old man in Beijing. He's like the definition of Laobaixing. He's so working class, and we'll be talking about all sorts, like the way that Baijiu is made compared to the way that red wine in France is made. And then we'll switch the conversation to be about the 1996 World Cup and how David Beckham performed for England in the World Cup. And then we'll switch the conversation entirely again to talk about, like, you know, whether he prefers the new energy Chinese electric vehicles versus the old style, you know, your classic old cars, like, and he can just talk about anything. But it's the same. You literally walk around, even like here in Shanghai, you walk around, talk to any of like Laobaixing people, and the conversations, you can just pick any subject and you'll be able to talk about it. Whereas normally, for some reason, and they're massively enthusiastic about chat.
Yes.
Just chatting.
Yes.
That's like, it's something that you say that out loud and it's like, yeah, they like to chat, but no, like,
you don't. They understand the byproduct of conversation is, it's like the wellness aspect of it, like social interaction positively influences you and your mental state regardless of what it's about. And I don't think they necessarily think, I'm feeling a little down today, maybe I should go to the park and talk to people. I think it's naturally built into the society that this idea of just hanging out
is so good for you. I must do it every day.
Yes.
I must go and chat to people and ask where they're from and what they're doing.
Yes.
And then it's like they've always got gossip. They've always got something to go home to tell. It's like we went to Dandong, which is an interesting city on the North Korea border. We also took a standing train there, and it's just, there was flocks and flocks of sort of 60 plus year old Chinese people, and their entire idea was simply that they had brought their very best binoculars from home to go to the Friendship Bridge, which is the half bridge. So there's a bridge that used to connect Dandong and the town in North Korea on the other side of the river. It's just a river, the same as like a really small river, you can see perfectly across. There used to be a bridge, and then the one half of it, the North Korean side, got destroyed in the Korea War, and then the Chinese rebuilt their bridge, and the North Koreans just didn't bother. So you can literally walk out like a plank half out to the river, and then you can just see like loads of stuff in North Korea. But all these like Chinese aunties and uncles have got the best binoculars, and they're just looking across. And the whole purpose of doing that, a lot of them are on their own. They're not in like a group. They're not with friends. And it's like, I met one guy. He was from Hangzhou, here in the same province as Shanghai, and he literally said that his wife was away on business, He was like a 65, 70-year-old guy. His wife was away on business. She's still working in Kazakhstan. She was. He said, I had like 3 or 4 days spare. I thought I'll just go to the North Korea border and have a look. And that was it. And the whole idea is that he's going to go, have a look, see what he can see, so that he can bring gossip back about what he saw in North Korea. So he's got something interesting to say the next time he chats. And that's how far they are deeply ingrained into chatting. It's like a real investment. And it's quite good because you'll like deliberately make your day or life more interesting in the pursuit of having better chat.
Right. Right. No, and I mean, that's why I personally really enjoy park culture. Right?
Yeah.
That's why if you sit down on a bench, especially in this particular park in Shanghai as a foreigner, because the Shanghainese have a different perception and reception and actually welcome foreigners more than other places, I would say. You might push back on that because I think you've been welcomed pretty much everywhere you've been. But I think there's something where the Shanghainese really enjoy speaking with a foreigner. So if you come and sit down and you don't have your headphones in, there's no way you're not going to have someone sit down next to you and just talk.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the city where you don't have to do anything for somebody to talk to you. Whereas other places in China is still very open, very welcoming and stuff. Like, and people, depending on where you go, like Dongbei in the very northeast is like super open. Like you know, people from South China go there and they're just like tired after they get out of a taxi because they've had to talk to the taxi driver, which is like not a thing that a lot of people do in other places in China. But when you actually talk to somebody around China, they often always chat to you, wonder what you're doing. But here in Shanghai, I agree, it's just like if you're trying to learn Chinese, or if you're like just fancy a chat, or you're willing to accommodate a Chinese person trying to learn English, so you don't have to do anything. Like I said, just sitting there will involve you in all kinds of family gossip and questions that you would never have been asked before.
You can get welcomed in very quickly to a situation.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
But the questions are amazing, right? Like, so if a foreigner's coming to China for the first time, they might be... Well, that's a nicer one.
Well, but it's always where are you from?
Yeah.
And then it can get weird.
Yeah. The questions are so direct in the best way possible. It's just like people, like, if you've like put weight on, they'll just be like, why are you fat? It's like, oh, well, it's because I ate too much. Oh, what did you eat? Loads of like fried pork, gobaro. Oh yeah, I love that too. And it's like, they're not actually like being mean about the fact that you're fat. They just want to know why you're fat and what you ate to get fat and what you're doing to, like, yeah, but I'm actually I'm starting a running club. Oh, you really? My daughter goes to a running club. It's ran by this guy. It's really good. If you want me to like connect you there. And it's like, they're not actually like out to like say you're fat. It's just like, oh, I can see that this is happening. Why is that happening? How should we talk about it? Or
what hotel are you staying at?
Yeah.
How much was it? How much was it per night? Oh, that's not that great. How much do you make? How much do you make doing the video stuff?
Well, what's the salaries like in England?
Right.
Like, in China, it's just like there is no.
Who do you want to? Who are you going to vote for to be your next prime minister? Who are you gonna?
It's amazing. Like you completely cut all of the BS out of conversation.
I think a lot of the PC, the political correctness of what you can ask and can't ask in, I think the US and UK were probably very similar. There's probably a few differences of what you can be more straightforward about, but more or less we're the same. But here that gets thrown out the window.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people will get a shock if we
don't understand that before they come here.
Yeah, we're sitting here going, come to chat, and you can chat with everybody, and like they get here and they get asked a really direct question, and they'll be like, oh, so no, that is, I just want to say that is a very, it's almost like a quality of going back to the Laobaixing people, but it's not just Laobaixing. I think every sort of person in China asks that sort of question, right?
How's been your reception as a foreigner in particular, do you think? Or also, additionally, you now speak a fair amount of Chinese, and you did not speak a fair amount of Chinese when you first arrived. And has that caused differences in how people interact with you, or how warmly you've been welcomed? Yeah, I
think I think the people who were warm to us originally with like no Chinese at all and just asking if people have eaten yet, which was a thing that I did when I first came to China, was
Right.
I kind of thought that Trulama was a real question that everybody
Look, it's
used.
what the textbooks teach. Ni hao ma, ni chulama. Those are
Yeah.
the first two phrases, but they are two things you'll never actually hear.
Yeah.
Here, so
I was just walking around everywhere asking if people had eaten yet, and then that was kind of the extent
they were
of
like,
my
yeah,
Chinese.
yeah. What do you want?
But the people that were open and welcoming then are obviously still as equally open now. But I think there was a lot of people who, it's not that they were rude or not open, it's just the fact that they weren't comfortable or confident speaking English. So they just like avoided the situation out of shyness. Whereas now, like, they might engage a little bit more and things like that.
Right.
I think generally, like, most people are like super up for any talk, but it's just been amazing to like actually connect with people, like actually have conversations, like just on the train, just like sitting and actually listening to people and knowing where they're going or what they're doing, and have so many like funny, because I'm not shy with it myself.
Right.
I think the one thing my teacher always says is like the number one thing for learning a language is to just speak. Well, that's it. Just speak constantly and speak with errors and speak terrible Chinese. But as long as you're speaking, as long as you're constantly speaking, then it's so good. And so I just like throw this like completely like incorrect sentence structure, like random words all over the place. I just throw them at people, and they just seem to love it.
Yeah. Well, there's an appreciation of foreigners speaking Chinese because it's funny because like I feel like when you go on the internet you'll see, well, there's a ton of foreigners that speak Chinese and they speak it really well,
Yeah.
like better than I may ever speak it. But then you realize there's 1.4 billion people in this country.
Yeah.
And so there's a difference between them seeing it online and then in person.
Yeah.
A lot of times you might speak, even if it's just very simple, it's like you're the first person that's ever actually like really tried to speak their language that they've met in person. So there's a high appreciation for that. And I think this is language learning in general, as I'm sure you've experienced elsewhere in the world, because I know you're very good about at least getting down like, hello, brother, how are you? How much is this in their language?
Yeah.
And even just that kind of stuff, like it's like a tip of the cap to them. It's like,
Yeah.
I respect you guys enough to the point where I'm trying to like learn a little bit of this, whereas the vast majority of foreigners won't even get that.
Yeah.
So you're like, by sharing that respect is what gets you drawn into all these absurd situations that you found yourself in, I think.
It just makes it more fun. Just like even like in India, like speaking a little bit of Hindi or whatever. It's just like it makes like buying a bag of crisps before you get on a train fun, because you go there and you say your greeting and you ask how much it is and you say this and that, and like they get excited about it. It's like,
Right.
imagine if every time you did anything the person was like really like excited to see you, and like I like that a lot, and that is the most, that's what you're saying. It's just, it makes the world of difference, even 10 or phrases and numbers and stuff like that, you know, asking how much something is and then seeing how much of that you want, like one or two of these or whatever. Like, I want this, I'd like this. Like, it just makes it so much easier. Like, when we first came to China, that's all we knew, and we got by okay,
Right.
no matter where we were, whether it was in Xinjiang or whether it was in Shanghai, like wherever. But yeah, that is something that is a big passion of mine, is just to be able to have random conversations with people in bizarre places in the world. As far as being the first people to speak their language, like you say, so many times around Dongbei in the northeast, where I kept asking people like, oh, am I the first British person you've ever met? Like, yeah. Like, I'm the first British person they've ever met. So everything I do from right now is probably going to be their entire impression of England going forward.
100%.
Yeah, and it's like, that's crazy. Like in like Heihe, which is the town on the Russia border, it's just like every person that we met, obviously they assumed I'm Russian.
Right.
I mean, that was actually the case throughout the entirety of northern China. It's just like people often didn't bat an eyelid at us in northeast China, because they were just like, just one of them Russians that comes
Right.
through every now
Right.
and then, like
Right.
one of them Russians that got business in Harbin or whatever. And then we like say, 我是英国人, like, What are you doing here? Why on earth are you here? Like, so that's a lot of fun. But yeah, so many times when the first, imagine going somewhere and you're from America, you're from Switzerland or whatever, and now all of a sudden accidentally you are, and if you factor in the butterfly effect, the ripple effect of that guy telling, I told you how much Chinese people love to gossip and everything, that guy, the taxi driver, who were the first person from that country he's ever met, he's going to tell every single person that he knows about the time he met the person from this country, what they were like, what they smelled like, what they, you know,
well,
dressed like.
you might have not given them a good impression on the smell part.
Well,
though.
Exactly.
Right.
That was something I was
Right.
worried about, and it's like, but then they're gonna say, oh, you know, my mate, Jimmy, he drives the taxis, and hey, he met an English guy the other day. He was saying that he smelled terrible, or he smelled amazing, or he
But
did
he was
this,
still a
or,
pleasant guy.
oh, he's a lovely guy,
Regardless
just,
of the smell.
just stunk after that train.
Right.
But like, and it's just like, this could ripple effect to hundreds of people, and like, also all of a sudden you are now like the unchosen spokesman of your country.
Well,
It's
I
quite
try to
fun.
think of that a lot as my passport in this country in particular, given the active tensions at the moment,
Yeah.
where hopefully
Yours is-
it's a general positive force in which try to dismantle some of what they might believe about the people.
Yeah. In
where
your
I'm from.
case, they'd be
Right.
like, yeah, but I did meet this American guy. He was lovely, and,
Right.
he spoke Chinese to me, and then he spoke Shanghainese to me. He was a really nice guy, and he like. And then when they go to one of their gossip tea parties and they start talking about maybe America, I saw on the news and this and that, I go, yeah, but I met an American guy. He was a lovely lad. He was. It's important.
And I think it's the case in, as far as the places where we are from in our home countries as well. Like, we don't necessarily have a lot of foreigners, right? There are, but you don't come across them a lot of the time. And when you were growing up, or when I was growing up, I can remember before I went to university, I maybe met like 2 or 3, and it was just a dude with a British accent. I'm like, oh my God, he's from England. Like, that's crazy. That's so far away, right? And so, again, I think one of the tough things about talking about these topics, and if again we are trying to speak to people who are preparing to travel or just arriving and like they still feel very out of place and not comfortable, like it's hard for us to go back to that perspective,
Yeah.
right? But if you think about when you were growing up and it's like you might have heard some negative things about people from X country coming and taking your jobs or whatever it is in the country, but it's like, but that dude I met the other day was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right? It kind of humanizes it. And again, a lot of the information people gather from all sorts of media is, designed to be decisive or divisive. And, but yeah, once you meet the actual people, it's very rare that 99% of people around the world are good.
Yeah.
Most people are good anywhere you go. And unless you run into one of the bad apples who confirms whatever you've been told by consuming whatever you're consuming, like that belief is gonna get challenged, which I think is wonderful. But yeah, that's why I think, if nothing else, even if you weren't recording any of this, you just hopping around, and now that butterfly effect has now created some sort of good reputation for your people.
Yeah, and obviously making the videos as well has showed a handful of...
It shows it to even more people, right? But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I always, like, people always often ask me here in China, do you love China, like whatever, and it's like, I'm English. I don't love England. Like, England is a country. It's like, I like places in England. I like being English. It's like, I like Chinese people. I love Chinese people. I love places in China. Like, and that's kind of how it is. I always like try to differentiate a country as an actual entity, and it's like just your everyday people. That's why, looping back to that word, like Laobaixing, that's universal. Just because it's a Chinese word, it's universal. It's the same anywhere we go. In Japan, in India, in Spain, whatever. It's like you go to away from like the main areas and go to some like, working class place, and there's like a hole in the wall, there's a dive bar, my heroes like Anthony Bourdain, he always preached that it's the plastic chairs on the side of the street with a bowl of pho and a 10 cents beer in Hanoi. It's you know, it's the 60 cents bocadillo in the side streets of Madrid, like at 10 stops away on the metro from the Grand Plaza. It's like these spots is where the people are going to be so welcoming and have a hint of curiosity about what brought you to their part of the of the neighborhood or of the city or whatever.
Which is what I think confused people about your train debacle. Is because the assumption in China is that most Westerners, and particularly if you say the US or UK, their assumption is you are filthy rich.
Yeah.
That's just what they believe.
Yeah.
And so, and when in this country in particular, I think they are in a phase in which it's like, it's the constant focus of upward mobility as far as their like economic status or situation. And I experienced it I remember in Malaysia as well, like I was going back to KL and there was people from the small town going back there and they were like, why'd you cut? Like people are just confused about going to these smaller places or sitting in these places that are like, at the end of the day, like this restaurant is here because it is at a price point that serves the construction workers here, right? And then they're confused when this foreigner who they think is filthy rich goes in there. And like whether you do have money or not, like it doesn't matter. It's about that experience in itself. And I think it's just they don't really comprehend that.
Because as well though, if somebody was a foreigner who'd contacted you and said, I want to visit your city or where you live.
Yeah, so you'd be like, what do you mean?
In our case it would be, well for me, sorry, it would be Newcastle.
Right.
And it's like, in Newcastle there is a central area where there's a big sort of monument, there's a shopping mall, and there are the types of bars and like bistros which you would find in a place where there is a giant shopping mall and a monument. Think about Times Square, New York. It's like if somebody was coming to New York, which I know you're from state-wise, if someone's coming to New York and they were talking about New York City in this case, you wouldn't recommend them to go out to eat or go to a bar in Times Square.
That's what a lot of people do, though, unfortunately.
But they do.
I wouldn't hurt, yes.
But like you're like, if you delve deeper, you would find that like if you head out to Queens or you do this, there's like some really sick spot where they've been selling the best pizza since 1941 and this and that, and like it's the same for like Newcastle. It's like if somebody said like, I've got a late flight into Newcastle, I'm just gonna go to the hotel, but when I wake up, like I want to like try a real English breakfast. But their hotel's in the city centre. It's like the best English breakfast, a real proper Laobaixing English breakfast, is not in the centre of Newcastle. Like, and it's away. It's in the more like in the working class areas, because it's hearty food that's been serving people who are in need of a hearty meal before a big work day. Like you're saying in Malaysia, it's a restaurant beside a construction site or something like that. And so if the question's posed to you, I would recommend people to do what I do in other countries, which is go away from Wang Fujing Street in Beijing or Beijing Lu in Guangzhou, like the walking streets of the famous tourist spots, and go to the more rustic, where people have t-shirt optional clothing while they eat in a restaurant. They're always the best restaurants. If there's like 6 guys and they're not wearing t-shirts while they're eating
that's
the meal,
where you need to go.
It's the best restaurant.
I don't know if you've, as far as your Mandarin journey, if you've reached, like, if I say like gan, like gan jue, gan shou, gan, like, do you know the character gan?
Gan.
It means like, it's like feel, right?
Right.
And so
like
really
shou.
often, yes, you'll hear chu gan shou isha.
Yeah.
Gan shou isha. Which is, I think we do not have this mode of speech in English where we say like, let's go feel what it's like.
Yeah.
You say, you can go see it. You can go X, you can go what, but it's never like you can go feel it. And I think that's something the Chinese people in particular like to do, but then not even talking about them, I think that's what people perhaps don't comprehend about what we like to do. I just want to feel what it's like. I just want to go there and I want to try to be one of these people as much as I possibly can, given my skin color, given where I'm originally from, given all the thoughts in my head that are different from theirs. Like, can I try to become one of them in the quickest amount of time possible, to just like feel what it's like.
Yeah.
Right? And it evokes like this sense of empathy that you'll carry with you throughout the rest of your life.
That's right. I mean, I always had this like overwhelming feeling like growing up where, and I still do it now, but it's sort of died down a little bit, which I'll get into, but I always had this like obsession with being somewhere somewhere I am always. So maybe it was in Newcastle while I'm working in a 9 to 5, I'm in the office and I'm back home, and that's a lot of the life. And I've always had this like overwhelming like feeling of like, imagine if I was just there.
Yeah.
Imagine if I was just here. And I used to have this giant world map in our living room, and I used to just stand with my hands on my hips and just look at it and go, imagine if like right now, just like not even getting sci-fi, like teleported, but if I was just suddenly there, and it's like, I'm looking at the map and I don't even know where it is. I'm like looking at like outside of Rosario, Argentina. It's like, imagine if right now I was just there. That would be so cool. And it's like, well, why would it be cool? I don't know, just because I'd just randomly be there for no reason, and that's cool.
100%.
I was in Gateshead, a small suburb outside of Newcastle. Now I'm in Rosario, Argentina. That's cool. And it's like, whereas the deliberacy of traveling to a place and then going to the place that you're supposed to go in the place, it loses the whole, that's so cool that I'm here. You have to like really get into some weird situations, and you know, it goes back to first day in China of like me on like 7th shot of 45% Baijiu in the most working class back streets of Beijing. I'm like thinking like, as I'm shotting, I'm like, I'm literally here shotting dodgy alcohol with some old guys in China's capital city, right in the back streets, away from everywhere. Like, what on earth am I doing here? Like, this is amazing. This is mental. Like, everything about this is just so bizarre.
Right.
And that's something that is, that what you're saying there, just to go and feel it. And it's just like, that's why. I just want to see what it would feel like to be there right now.
Or to be one of those people. So like you said, Bourdain, and one of the big Bourdain things was, don't be a tourist, be a traveler.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost one thing, like, don't be a tourist, don't be a traveler, just be a person, just like try to be one of them.
Yeah.
Like try to forget the fact that you're just visiting temporarily, like just be a person who's there in that setting. Yeah. And I think it's a lot easier to do that when you show up at a bus station and catch the next bus to the place you have no idea where it is, because there aren't going to be any other foreigners there, and your only choice is to just be a person.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, that's kind of like at least what I try to advocate, right? Is like, and I'm lucky enough that the people that I travel with around me also don't like to, for example, when we were in Hong Kong, go to Victoria Harbour and go to the Peak and go to that. I took them to the sketchy streets of Wan Chai, where you see all the gambling and the prostitutes, or I took them to Chongqing mansions, right? Just these odd, which is on the tourist trail, but it's like just these like weird, quirky places that give you a glimpse into what the life of a person there is actually like, and it's not just the beautiful lit up skyline.
It's always better as well. You're always so glad that you did that instead of the main thing. I always hate it when you're waiting in line for like an amazing thing, and it's just like, it just takes all the magic away from it, because it's like, it's going to be really good because there are 50 people in front of me who are also waiting to see this. Like, this is the thing to see. And then you're waiting in line and you get closer and closer and closer, and you see it and go, that's it. That's what I queued for. The amazing thing that everybody's here to see. Whereas when you can just like go, this looks cool. You just like rock up and it's just happening now, like immediately. And you don't know if it's going to be good or not, because there isn't a big line of 50 people proving to you that it is good.
Right.
It's the uncertainty that adds to that a lot. But yeah, the Chinese also use the word to play a lot as well.
They do use the word to play a lot.
The character war is just used, the same as gun. It's like
in English, it's like the kids are gonna go outside to play, but then you ask the 70-year-old dude, like, why is he gonna go to Korea? One,
just to play.
I'm just going to play.
I'm just gonna go and play in Korea. Like, why not?
Yeah. No, I think, again, it's bringing us back to the Chinese as, again, this idea of you'll sit on a park bench and talk to someone. It's not important what you talk about. What's important is you're just talking to them. When you want to go play, it's not like I have this activity I've been wanting to do and I'm going to go do this activity. It's like I'm just doing something for leisure and for doing something where I have intrinsic enjoyment in the moment of doing it. And I'm not doing it for the sake of anything else. It's just like, we're just going to go hang out and relax, which is something that sometimes drives me crazy. I'm like, why are we going to this place? We're like, just walk around and check it out. I'm like, what do you, I'm like, I have stuff to do. Like, what do you mean? It's like, let's just go hang out.
Let's just go and see it.
Yeah. Which I think is, again, these people have a very long lineage of culture. And I think some of these things are probably built into it, understanding that it is good for the intrinsic well-being of the people.
Yeah, for sure. So who is the ideal recipient of this story, of this feeling? I want to pass across some.
So I think the idea of the people who are going to come across this, it's probably either some sort of expat who's going to be living long-term, whether they are preparing for some sort of long-term assignment or they are in the early stages of the assignment in which they're probably struggling to understand, how can I feel comfortable here? And some might be saying, well, how can I even begin to fit in here? That's kind of the next step. The first is like, how do I mentally get myself into a place where I can just like survive here and not just be bugging out all the time, right? And just anxious and like frustrated.
Yeah.
And then a step further would be, how can I begin to like try to become one of these people? Like, you know, I like a term like elective assimilation, because again, I've told you the word assimilation, at least in the American context, sometimes has a negative connotation, because it's the idea of making people assimilate into the culture forcefully. Oftentimes in history classes, it has a heavy connotation with the forceful assimilation of Native Americans into what was the new society at the time. So that's why the word assimilation sometimes gets a bad rap, but when you add elective assimilation, I kind of think of it, it's 1000% what I'm doing. When I was in Colombia, when I've been here, anywhere I am long term, my idea is like, how can I try to become like these people as much as possible? So that would be the next step beyond just trying to feel comfortable. It could be a student who's going to be somewhere it's anyone who's going to be somewhere long term.
Yeah.
And they're trying to really feel comfortable. It might be their first time being abroad, right? Which maybe you could talk about that, like your first time leaving the country and kind of the mind opening that happens when you do that. Because again, I think what I said earlier is like, we are so far removed from that.
Yeah.
You and I are so far removed from that, where it's, you show up to a bus station, take a bus to a place, you have no idea where it is, you don't know what's going on, you have nothing booked, and our heart rate does not increase.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a far step from the first time ever going out of the English customs and border with your passport for the first time. Like, it's a very different situation. So
I must add, it's a shame as well that our heart rate doesn't increase.
Well, I always talk to people. It's kind of like it's I can't speak from experience, but people say like heroin, like chasing the dragon, you always need more.
Yeah.
I felt that as I was like continuing to study abroad more and more, and then starting to go to like these like cities that people don't know, and then I'm just going to like villages. It's like you need more and more to like feel the rush.
Worst part is, it's like you have to get sober. You have to stay in one place that isn't massively interesting. So maybe your hometown again, like just reset for like a little while and just get that craving again. But it's very, very hard after, if you've been to a lot of countries, or especially, I don't think it's so much if you've been to a lot of countries, it's more so if you've done long term travel.
I hate number of stamps in my passport or number of countries I've been to as a metric for someone saying they're well traveled.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times they might have the stamp of they showed up in the US, but they went to get dinner in Times Square.
Yeah. Yeah.
They went to Shinjuku. They went to whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and that is the vast majority of people, which is fine. And if people are enjoying that and they're playing and intrinsically enjoy it, that's okay. But like, you're not traveling. I think you're going to a different place and you're having the similar experience that you would have where you're from, right? Yeah. It's this idea of like being able to like roll with it. whatever comes up, whatever oddity, like feeling comfortable, I think that's the important quality that, again, you ask the people who are viewing this, I think that's the most important thing to cultivate, is just like, whatever, like, cool.
Yeah. So it's, wow. So going back, first feeling of going away for the first time, I guess, like as an adult.
How old were you at that time?
So
and are you an adult now?
I'm trying to be. I'll have to say an adult, because given living in England, it's sort of fairly common for people to travel abroad as a child with family.
Fair,
to Europe. It's
alone.
like,
first time alone abroad.
first time alone.
Okay.
That was me and Paige, my wife, when we were 18, and just saved up everything we had, everything I had. I wanted to treat Paige to this like trip away as like a birthday present. But I was like on an apprenticeship, it's like a traineeship. I was making like £400 a month at 17 years old, and just saving like everything so we could go to Greece. And we went to Zante, which is like quite a famous party island. It's like Ibiza but in Greece. And it was just, when you first leave, not only the reins of like your family and the everybody around you and all the sort of culture and behavioural norms that you do on a daily basis in your own town, because if you know everybody, you're always going to kind of act in a certain way that everybody knows you for. When you leave, it's like, wow, nobody knows who I am, and I can just,
anonymity is powerful.
yeah, so you just do whatever you want. You could just like become Australian for no reason if you wanted to. Like,
I'll say Canadian a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Especially when tensions are high with wherever I might be. Canadian.
Canada, eh?
Because the first time I ever went was Australia, and it was Trump 1 era, and it was always, what do you think of Trump? And then like questions about guns, you know.
So it's the most thrilling feeling, really. So we went to an island. It was the peak of summer, beautiful weather, and it was just like, I'd saved up money so that I had enough to do things like excursions and stuff like that, and just like, I would say go online, and like I heard about this like secret beach where it's made partly out of sulfur, and it kind of changed the color of the water to be like a milky blue, and it looked just incredible. So just like went there. That sounds silly, but it's just like, we just like looked at something and thought, let's just go across an island to find a secret beach and spend the day there. The next day was like riding jet skis at 40 miles an hour, like on the waves. It's like, this is mental. Like last week I was in the office fixing a computer. I used to do IT, and like fixing a dusty, horrible computer, and now I'm driving a jet ski in the sun on Greek blue waters at 40 miles an hour or whatever. Like a couple of days later we hired a boat, and this is just the most life-changing thing. Full sort of, you could fit like 4 people on it, small motorboat with a nice little sort of tarp roof, just a classic steering wheel and a up and down thruster. And we just got this boat, paid like €100 for it for the whole day, and we just took it out. And Zakynthos Island is really beautiful because it's the main island, and then there's like a really small island called Turtle Island. So we kind of used that as our bearings to kind of, as long as we circled around there, we hadn't got lost out in the Adriatic Sea. And it was just like, what are we doing? We're just like, it felt like we're in a game. We're just like driving this, like, it's not a speedboat, didn't really go fast, but driving this motorboat around these like bluest waters you've ever imagined. Like, you can see all the way down to the bottom. If there's like something on the bottom of the sea bed, you can see it like all the way, like meters and meters and meters down. And we're just like parked up on this like Turtle Island, and just like threw the anchor onto the sand. And we just like sat there for a bit, and then we're like, let's go again. Reel in the anchor, turn on the boat, and just like, what are we doing? How do we have so much freedom that we can drive a motorboat around a paradise Greek island in the middle of summer for €100? And it's just like, next 3 days later, I'm back in the rain in Newcastle fixing a dusty computer again. It's like, that is one thing if you're doing travel as far as like trips go, and then you return to the same place each time. It's one of the hardest things to wrap your head around. is to be doing that and then to go back to what you were doing. It's the most potent drug ever. If you're talking about connotations to heroin or whatever, it's the most potent drug ever. Your first trip abroad, and especially if you do let yourself go a little bit and do not panic and go, oh well I don't know what happens if I get a boat and it breaks down or this and that. Like, just if you actually just go for it, you just do the most bizarre things. And last story like that I'll say is when we first ever time to Asia, and that is like doing this whole thing again. You can go to, if you're from Europe, you go to Europe and go to different places. It's amazing, really exciting. And then you go to a different continent like Asia, and it's like a different world. Like, it's everything is mental. Like, arriving in Bangkok, having not left England in months and months and months and months, 6-7 months has been just working away 9 to 5 every day, and then bang, it's a flight to Bangkok, Thailand. Get on this rickety bus to Khao San Road, the classic backpacker street in Thailand. It's just getting off, and it's hot, and the air smells spicy, and you walk here, some guy's got a street food station with a walking flame comes up, right, you're dodging that. You've got your backpack on, some guy's offering you a deep fried scorpion, you want this? Some guy wants you to sell you a prostitute, some guy says come here, then there's music blaring, and there's LED lights everywhere, and there's like fucking massive insects flying about the place. You're like, this place that I'm in is literally pulsating. Like, it's like every building, every light is vibrating with energy, and it's like you've taken LSD or something. But it's just because some of the cities in Asia, when you go to, are just so unbelievably mental compared to anywhere in Europe or North America or whatever.
Sure.
That is itself just like enough to make you run wild. Like, okay, this whole place, I'm not even going to decide what I'm doing tonight. This place will decide it for me. And I remember we took a sleeper train down through the jungle and a ferry across to a Thai island, famous one, Koh Phangan, and there was a half moon party. It was a half moon in the sky, so they said, let's have a party. And it was in the middle of a jungle, literally on this tropical island, in the middle of the the Gulf of Thailand. Tropical island, palm trees everywhere, beautiful white beaches, and in the center of the island, deep into the jungle, there's this outrageous rave, and there's like professional DJs and everything, and there's a giant fire. Like, they've got this huge display, it must be about 30 feet, and it's all on fire, and it says half moon, and we're drinking cocktails out of buckets that you would make sand castles with. and you're like, I'm in the middle of the Gulf of Thailand on a tropical island, there's a huge 30-foot fire, and I'm drinking cocktails out of buckets in the middle of the jungle. And like 48 hours later, I was at my desk in Newcastle. And it's like, that is just one of the hardest things to process, and it sounds like such a privileged thing to say. It's so terrible I have such good times and then I have to work. Right. But like, it's really hard to process mentally. Sadly, to end my point, after you travel long term, after you achieve what in our case is just a lifelong dream of travelling full time, and to be able to go to the airport and go somewhere next instead of going home, that feeling that you get of the rush of being somewhere new, that tapers down and down and down and down and down.
Right. Well, also, I think, I don't know about you, but I think you as well, like, I think you were also describing stages, because like, I don't ever want to go to Khao San Road again.
Yeah.
It would just drive me crazy.
I've been there this year.
But the first time, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Because, Khao San Road was specifically built to have that pulsating sensation you described. But, so, one, when you were talking about the Greek boat island experience, I could like, you can't go back and feel it, but like, I know the experience. It's like the freedom of it. So I spent a semester at the University of City, and the spring break thing you do is you find a friend who has the same break as you, and you go and you rent a camper van, you drive around the whole island together.
Right.
And it's just one night standing outside the van in some, like, barely have any gas, and like our mattress is so bad that we have to have a bottle of whiskey to drink to get ourselves to sleep. And like, you look up and it's just like, especially again, even like at that time I was 19, but I'm still under the reins of like study abroad university administration. Like, it's still like there's still things you got to do. It's not the like I just took a plane and I ended up here and like no one's responsible for me. But in New Zealand, that was the first time that I was like, I did not have to ask for any sort of permission to be here or do this.
Yeah.
And it was just like that realization of like,
You didn't tell anybody you were going to hire a camper van?
I didn't have to ask anyone to do it. I just had to put my credit card in the machine.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just the money. That's the only thing. And then which, yeah, is a wild sensation. But my first year, I don't know if I've ever told you, my first year was first time I ever left the US, 5 months at the University of Sydney, 3-month internship in Hong Kong, 4 months in Amsterdam, home.
That's such a great way to
yeah,
to
but when you
university.
do get home, yeah, well, for sure, yes. But as far as it being the first experience, it was 1 year in 3 really different places.
Yeah.
And then getting home, and it was just like, I got hit very hard with like reverse culture shock.
Yeah, I bet. So your first time abroad was a year in 4 different
I did fly back for like, it was only a week at a time. So there was a quick reset, but really like not enough to like get back to baseline.
Yeah, that is. So that's
I feel like I always
described
described it as people as like, I feel like it was just like shot out of a cannon.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, English people are more, they're more likely to go abroad and to hang out, whether that is a gap year or whether it's the lads going to get stoned in Amsterdam for a weekend.
Yeah.
Like, it's, well, also just me going to California is like you going to Greece. So it's like this idea of state and country and yada, whatever. You're more likely to travel in a setting in which you don't speak the language, you're not familiar with the customs, just because Europe is, in a way, it's more accessible to you.
Yeah.
But like, I grew up in relatively rural America, and it's a bubble.
Yeah, I bet.
It's very sheltered. And so yeah, that's I felt like I was shot out of a cannon. But I think it's a good way to do it. I think it's a good way to do it.
And
yeah.
it's like long-term travel.
And then it was 6 weeks home, and then that's when I flew to Nepal, and I lived with that family. Was that a good sentence? Is that what?
Yeah. It's just the most outrageous plan. Like, I don't know anybody whose travel journey is.
Yeah, it's been wild, but.
So that's when I just went to Nepal and lived with that family. So you never traveled outside of America. You then shoot yourself across the entire world to New Zealand for just several months. Then you go to Hong Kong.
Australia, Hong Kong, Amsterdam, and the Hong Kong was a full-time internship gig, but the 5 months in Sydney and the 4 months in Amsterdam, I rigged my schedule so I was on campus Monday, Tuesday. Then I had 5-day weekends.
Nice.
So I just partied in world capitals for a year.
And then you're like in Hong Kong, like doing actual like business, corporate. So all of a sudden you're in a corporate life in Hong Kong, in a major business city, and then bang, you're in Amsterdam, which is an entirely different pace of life, entirely different, and you probably found all sorts of new interests and friends. You're back in the US, that's a major culture shock, and you think, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Nepal and live with a family.
Which is what I did. And then COVID hit.
And
one of the toughest decisions I've ever made was when COVID hit and my university called me home, my family, and our language capability was not super strong. They said, well, we're going to go into the mountains to get away from the city to avoid the virus. Do you want to come with us? So I decided between the flight home and that. But regardless, I think it gives you a better understanding of like, there's the sheltered nature of it, and then it's like the reality of the world.
Yeah.
Right? And once you're exposed to so many different things, I know you could drop me anywhere and there won't be a change in heart rate, because it's just people, and it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same. There's going to be different food, the language will sound different, people might be more straightforward with their questioning, but it's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, again, and it was, you asked specifically more to who's going to be listening to this, like that's one of the biggest lessons is like, and like I said earlier, when someone asked me like, how do I make friends when I'm here? How do I do this when I'm here? I'm like, how would you do it where you are now? Okay, same thing. People think
Yeah.
there's an imaginary barrier, especially when it comes to people, because I think what this is all about is like the interactions with people, and I think people think there's a barrier when you're interacting with people from another place or another culture, and there's not.
Yeah, just yourself.
It's all a mental game, and that's why I think that just the trip after trip, and just again, we don't like countries visited as a metric of who's a traveler, but like hours in absurdly uncomfortable situations in random corners of the world, I think that's a good metric.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's a good metric. And so yeah, that is what I encourage. And again, the idea is like you guys come back to Shanghai a lot because you know it's a very comfortable place. And so I think a lot of people, specifically in China, who will get expat assignments are coming to Shanghai.
Yeah.
And to them, it's still this really different world, and like it's still a bit crazy. And so what I would say is like, when you come to China, just go to the countryside for a week, and then when you come back to Shanghai, you'll feel like you're home.
Totally agree.
And so it's like it's so difficult to explain, but it's like
this is exactly what we do. It's exactly how we feel. We come to Shanghai, we normally fly into Shanghai, then we'll go on some crazy adventures, find ourselves isolated up in the Russian borders where people are meeting English people for the very first time ever. We're in, central China, in different provinces, all the rest of it. We come back to Shanghai, we've got mates from our city in Newcastle who work here. We can go to the pub together, we can drink craft beer, watch Premier League football on the telly, and it's like a lot of the time you'll find bars and pubs. You'll find English pubs in China better than pubs in England. You'll find sports bars in China which are designated with like full 75-inch or 100-inch huge projectors, 4K Premier League footy, and they have the 3 p.m. kickoffs. Now, that might not mean anything to you, but in England, any football game that kicks off at 3 p.m. is illegal to televise it. In China, they have all the 3 p.m. kickoffs. It's just little stuff like that where it's like, you find yourself surrounded by your own fans of your club, watching the game, drinking a pint. It's like, we are really all the same, and you can find everything you like here and anywhere in the world, really. But it really helps to have an interest or a hobby and seek that in the place you're going to, whether it's Shanghai or whether it's wherever you're going, and find, maybe there's another expat who's been here for 10 years and he's speaks a bit of the language, and he'll show you around a little bit. And that doesn't mean that, you've came here and all you do is hang out with expats and drink in expat bars and all the rest of it. Sometimes it's like that, sure, but other times you can find a real mentor, a real somebody who's like there to offer a bit of help and explain stuff in your language to you and what you understand, and show you stuff and show you how to use the apps on your phone and show you how to do all this stuff, and you find it so easy. And again, go away somewhere else, somewhere totally different, come back to Shanghai again, and you go, yeah, this is home.
It's like it's the baseline of it. So that's what I'm saying is, if someone comes, if they grew up in London, they come to Shanghai and they only stay in Shanghai, there's always going to be this sense of like uncomfortableness, and this is different and it's foreign. Yeah. But if you go to the countryside and realize what actual difference looks like, and then come back here, you're going to actually feel as comfortable as you would in London.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like if you have these experiences where you've just been totally fish out of water, totally just like, I don't know what's going on, but if you can somehow mentally get yourself to a place where it's like, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Then living somewhere where you're actually probably going to have your expat assignment or be studying is going to be an absolute breeze.
Yeah. And you come on leaps and bounds in personal gain.
Exactly. So yeah, that's what this is going to be all about, I think.
I like it.
Yeah. How you feeling?
I need a wee.
You need a wee.
Can I take a piss break, Joe?
Well, all right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up here because we have the saxophone starting over here. We don't want to crowd the audio too much. How are we looking on battery? Are we good? Producer.
Sleeping.
Are we? I think we're. I'm asking about battery. How do we look on battery? Regardless, we have a we that's needed, so I think we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
I appreciate you being here with us on your only day in Shanghai.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I enjoyed talking about it. It was nice to nice to reminisce and go through stuff.
Right.
And really put myself in the shoes of somebody who was going to go through what I've been through for the first time. And that's quite a nice thought process to go into.
Because, again, we are so far removed from it.
Yeah. But it's easy. It's good.
It's cool. You
It's
just do
fun.
it. You just do it.
Come,
It's
do
good. Sometimes
it.
it's really going to suck, though.
Jump in the deep
It
water
might suck
and let it
sometimes.
suck.
It
And then
might
it's
suck
amazing
some-
when you get out.
Exactly.
All right.
All right. Go pee. You can go pee.
I need a wee. That's what happens.